It started the way most stupid ideas do. After a couple beers and one too many TikToks about moving in with your best friend, I just lost my lease. My roommate, Kyle, bailed mid-month to go backpack through South America with some guy he'd met in a Reddit thread. So when my landlord told me he was selling the place, I had less than 30 days to pack my life into boxes and figure out a new plan. Enter Liam. Liam had been my friend since college. We met during a group project neither of us wanted to do, but ended up finishing in a single, caffeine-fueled night at a 24-hour diner. That kind of friendship just stuck. He was the guy who'd answer a 2 a.m. call, the one who remembered to send me a good luck text before big interviews, the one who once drove 4 hours to help me move out of an ex's place. But living together? That felt like a gamble. Still, when I joked about it, half serious, half testing the water, he just shrugged and said, "You want to move in? I've got space." Just like that. So 3 weeks later, I found myself dragging boxes up to the second floor of his apartment, sweaty and winded while he carried 2 at a time like it was nothing. "Didn't you say this was a light move?" he called from the stairs, grinning at me over his shoulder. "I'm emotionally light," I said. "Physically, that's all books and guilt." He laughed, deep and easy, and I tried not to stare at the way his shirt clung to his back as he walked up. It's not that I'd never noticed Liam was good-looking. I had. Of course I had. Tall, scruffy in that just-enough-effort way, with a jawline that made me irrationally annoyed every time he shaved. But noticing and thinking were two different things, and I didn't let myself think. Not until we were under the same roof. The first week was mostly chaos. Boxes everywhere, missing socks, takeout containers piling up on the counter. But it worked. We fell into a rhythm so fast it was like we'd been living together for years. We'd cook dinner in shifts, watch dumb reality shows on the couch, share beers on the balcony, even though it was barely wide enough to fit 2 chairs. And at night, he'd disappear into his room, and I'd lie awake wondering why I suddenly couldn't fall asleep as easily as before. Then came the Thursday night that changed everything. We were on the couch, halfway through some true crime docuseries. It was late, probably past midnight. Liam was nursing his 3rd beer, legs stretched across the coffee table, socks mismatched. I was sitting closer than I meant to, our shoulders brushing every time he shifted. "God," he muttered, watching the screen. "Why do people always go back to check the noise in the basement?" "White people," I said, mock serious. "We can't help ourselves. Generational trauma didn't teach us better." He snorted, head tipping back as he laughed. His hand brushed mine on the cushion between us, just for a second, but long enough to make my breath catch. I didn't pull away. He didn't either. And then, very slowly, he turned toward me. I felt the shift in the air before he said anything. That stillness, the kind that only happens when something important is about to happen. "Can I ask you something?" he said, voice quieter now. I nodded, unsure I could actually speak. "Have you ever, I don't know, thought about us?" My heart skipped, then started pounding. "What do you mean?" I asked, even though I knew exactly what he meant. He didn't look away. "I mean, if things were different, if we weren't just friends." I opened my mouth, closed it, then finally said, "I've tried not to." He raised an eyebrow. "Tried not to?" "Yeah," I said. "Because once I start, I don't think I could stop." He was quiet. Too quiet. Then he leaned in just a little, eyes on mine. "You're not the only one who tried not to." I didn't breathe. Not when he shifted closer. Not when his hand slid over mine. And definitely not when his lips brushed against mine. Soft, hesitant, testing the waters. I kissed him back. It was barely a kiss, really. Just the soft press of lips. A pause, then a retreat. Like we both needed to breathe again. But everything about it felt massive. Like we'd opened a door we couldn't close. He sat back, eyes searching mine. "Was that a bad idea?" I shook my head slowly. "I don't know yet." "Okay," he said, voice rough. Then let's figure it out. The next morning felt weird. Not in a bad way, just like the air had changed. Like everything in the apartment was the same, but someone had gone around and adjusted all the dials just slightly. The silence was heavier. The coffee smelled stronger. I was hyper-aware of every sound, every creak of the floorboards, every distant car horn. Liam was already in the kitchen when I stumbled out of my room, hair a mess, hoodie half-zipped. He looked up from the skillet and gave me a small, almost shy smile. "Morning," he said. "Hey." There was a beat of silence as he flipped something in the pan. Eggs, maybe? Or scrambled self-control. "You sleep okay?" he asked. I nodded, leaning against the doorframe. Took a while. "Yeah, same." I watched him cook. Watched the way his jaw moved as he chewed on the inside of his cheek, the way he kept glancing over like he wanted to say something and wasn't sure how. I was about to break the silence when he beat me to it. "About last night," I held my breath. He turned off the stove, set the spatula down gently, and looked at me, full on. "I'm not freaking out. Just thinking." I nodded. "Same. And I don't regret it, just so we're clear." That surprised me, not because I thought he would regret it, but because I hadn't let myself hope that much. "Me neither," I said quietly. He came around the counter, plate in hand, and set it down in front of me. Scrambled eggs, toast, a little too much sriracha. Classic Liam. "I've been thinking about it for a while," he said, finally sitting across from me. "But I didn't know if it was just comfort, you know? Like, we're close. Maybe too close. And I didn't want to screw that up." I looked down at the eggs, then back at him. "So what changed?" he shrugged. "You. The way you didn't pull away." I felt my face warm. I didn't want to. There was another silence, but it didn't feel awkward this time. Just careful. "You want to figure this out?" he asked, eyes locked on mine. "Whatever this is," I nodded. "Yeah, I do," he exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath all morning. "Okay. So we go slow," he said. "No weirdness, no pressure. We keep living like we have been, just maybe with a little more touching." That made me laugh. "You make it sound like an IKEA instruction manual." "I'm just saying, let's not overthink it." Which, of course, I immediately did for the next 4 hours. I tried to focus on work. I opened my laptop, stared at my inbox, closed it again. My brain kept replaying the way his lips had felt on mine, the way his hand had rested so casually on my thigh afterward, like it belonged there, the way we'd said goodnight without saying a word. That night, he came home from work with Thai food and a grin that made my stomach twist. We didn't kiss, we didn't even touch much. Just sat close again, thighs brushing, and watched some movie neither of us really paid attention to. But when the credits rolled, he looked at me and said, "You want to sleep in my room?" It wasn't a sexy offer. It wasn't a hookup thing. It was soft, quiet. I hesitated. "You sure?" He nodded. "You don't have to. I just sleep better when you're close." That wrecked me a little more than I expected. So I followed him down the hall. His room was dimly lit, familiar but strange now that it was an invitation. He tossed an extra pillow on the bed and pulled back the blanket, then turned to me. "You nervous?" he asked. "A little." "Same," he said. We crawled in like kids at a sleepover, facing opposite directions. But by the time the room settled into quiet and the fan hummed above us, I felt his hand brush my arm. I reached back, took it in mine, and we fell asleep like that. Hands loosely laced, backs turned, but closer than ever. The next morning, I woke to find him still asleep. His arm had draped over my waist at some point, and his face was nuzzled into the back of my neck. The kind of sleep where you stop guarding yourself. The kind that only happens when you feel safe. I didn't move. Not right away. Because I didn't want to wake him. Because I didn't want to wake me. The thing about falling for your best friend, especially when you live with him, is that every little moment starts to feel loaded. Not in a bad way, just different. The way Liam handed me my coffee that morning, still half asleep and shirtless, suddenly felt intimate. The way he leaned into the fridge, towel slung low around his waist, felt like a test I hadn't studied for. And maybe I was overthinking it. But also, maybe I wasn't. That Saturday, we decided to have a normal day, as Liam called it. No heavy talks. No what does this mean conversations. Just two friends. Whatever else we were now, doing errands, grabbing food, pretending we weren't both dying to talk about the way we'd woken up in each other's arms. It started simple. We hit the farmer's market, wandered through rows of overpriced mushrooms and artisanal granola. Liam bought peaches. I bought hot sauce I didn't need. We shared a breakfast burrito on the curb, laughing at a dog in sunglasses. Normal. But then it was afternoon, and we were sitting in the living room again, and the air had shifted. I was on the couch. He was on the floor, leaning back between my legs, head resting against my knee while we scrolled through Zillow listings for fun, pretending we could afford a house with a pool. At one point, he looked up at me and said, "You'd be a good roommate to retire with." I blinked. "That's the weirdest compliment I've ever gotten." He grinned. "I'm serious. You'd probably still alphabetize your spice rack and make sad playlists about autumn when we're 70. You assume I'd still be making playlists for you when I'm 70. He tilted his head, resting his chin on my thigh now. "Wouldn't you?" I looked at him. "Yeah, I would." We didn't say anything for a long time after that. Later, I was washing dishes when he came up behind me and just wrapped his arms around my waist. No warning. No words. Just him pressing his chest against my back, his head resting between my shoulder blades like it was the most natural thing in the world. I froze for a second. Hands still wet, water running, brain short-circuiting. Then I relaxed into it. His voice was quiet. "I think I'm falling for you." I turned off the tap. Slowly, I turned to face him, his arms still around me. "You're not the only one," I said. He didn't smile. He didn't joke. He just leaned in and kissed me again, this time with a little more certainty, a little more weight. It wasn't rushed, wasn't frantic, just slow, deliberate, with the kind of care that made my chest ache. When we pulled apart, he said, "I keep trying to be chill about this, but it's getting harder not to want more." I swallowed. "More like," he hesitated, "like waking up next to you on purpose? Like telling people you're mine?" That last part hit harder than I expected. "You want that?" He nodded. "Yeah, I think I do." My hands were still damp. His shirt was a little wet now from where I had touched him, but he didn't care. Neither did I. "Okay," I said. "Let's try." That night, we didn't bother with separate rooms. We climbed into bed together. No pretense, no distance. His arm went around me. Mine found his chest. We lay there, limbs tangled, hearts racing, trying to pretend we were calm. At some point, I whispered, "You still want to take it slow?" He smirked in the dark. "Slower than this?" "Fair." And then, just before sleep hit, he kissed my forehead and said, "Good night, boyfriend." I smiled into his chest. "Good night." By the following week, we weren't exactly telling people, but we weren't hiding it either. Liam would brush his fingers against mine in the cereal aisle. He started calling me dude less and hey you more. Our Netflix nights turned into Netflix make-out, maybe eventually watch something nights. It was easy. It was terrifying. Because I kept waiting for the part where it got complicated. Where he pulled back. Where I messed something up. Where we realized we were better off as just friends. But it didn't happen. One night, we had his friend Evan over. They used to play soccer together. Evan was loud, funny, full of stories. We ordered pizza, opened beers, kept things light. But the whole time, I felt Liam's eyes flick to me, little glances that said, "We're still us, even with someone else in the room." At one point, Evan made a comment about dating. "Man, it's brutal out there," he said, grabbing another slice. "Everyone either wants a situationship or a therapist." Liam glanced at me before answering. "Yeah, I got lucky." Evan raised an eyebrow. Wait, you're seeing someone? I felt my chest tighten, but Liam didn't hesitate. Yeah, I am. He didn't say my name, didn't need to. Evan looked between us and grinned. Well, damn. About time. After Evan left, I found Liam in the kitchen, rinsing bottles for recycling. You didn't have to say anything, I said, voice low. He looked at me. Why wouldn't I? I don't know. We didn't talk about it. I don't need a conversation to tell people I care about you. That shut me up. He stepped closer, towel slung over his shoulder, fingers brushing mine. Is it too fast? No, I said. It's just new. New doesn't mean bad. He leaned in, kissed me softly. And I've wanted this since long before it was new. That night, I couldn't sleep, not because I was anxious, but because I was happy. He was already out, sprawled across the bed, breathing slow and steady. I turned onto my side and just looked at him for a while. The scar on his collarbone, the way his mouth twitched slightly when he exhaled, the small, almost imperceptible crease between his brows, even when he was asleep. I reached out and touched his hand lightly. He stirred, blinked up at me. Everything okay? He murmured. Yeah, I whispered. Just looking. He smiled, eyes still half closed. Keep looking, he said. I'm not going anywhere. Things didn't change overnight, not in any dramatic movie scene kind of way. We still bickered about leaving dishes in the sink, still made each other playlists, still argued about whether or not Die Hard was a Christmas movie. But now there were these moments in between, quiet, small things that felt massive if you were paying attention. Like the way he'd rest his hand on the small of my back when we were out, or how he'd hum when he was brushing his teeth, and I'd catch myself smiling like an idiot just listening to him exist. One night, about a month in, we had a stupid argument. Not even a real fight, just one of those annoying domestic things. It started with laundry. I'd left a wet load in the washer, forgot about it. Again, when Liam found it, he was already annoyed from work, and it just tipped him over. Dude, you've got to stop doing this, he said, tossing the half-damp clothes into the basket. They smell like mildew. I know, I'm sorry. I got distracted. Again, that word stung more than it should have. I said I'm sorry, I snapped. You don't have to be an ass about it. He flinched like I'd slapped him, then just left the room. The silence after felt way too loud. I stood there, staring at the laundry basket, feeling like the world's biggest idiot, not because of the laundry, but because I'd seen something in his face I didn't like. That fear, the kind that says, what if this is the part where it breaks? I waited a beat, then went to find him. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, shoulders hunched, fingers laced. I sat down beside him. I shouldn't have snapped. He didn't look at me, but he nodded. I shouldn't have pushed. We sat like that for a moment, the weight of it hanging between us. Then he said, I'm not used to having something I actually want to keep. So when it feels fragile, I go on defense. I looked at him. This doesn't feel fragile to me. He turned his head, finally meeting my eyes. No? No, I said. It feels real. And sometimes real things get messy. Doesn't mean they break. He leaned in, forehead resting against mine. You sure about that? I kissed him. Soft, slow, like punctuation at the end of a sentence that didn't need to be repeated. I'm sure, I whispered. Later that night, curled up against each other in the dark, he said something I wasn't expecting. I told my sister about you. I blinked. You did? She said she already figured. I laughed into his chest. She's smart. Yeah, he said. She asked me if I was happy. And? He pulled me closer. I said yeah. For the first time in a long time. Fall settled in slow and lazy. Mornings started with hoodies and cold kitchen tile. Evenings ended with hot drinks and one of us inevitably falling asleep on the other during some half-watched show. The city got quieter and so did we, but in the good way. Comfortable. Easy. Until my mom called. She wanted to visit. Which was normal. But what wasn't normal was that I didn't feel ready to explain Liam. Not because I was ashamed. I wasn't. But this thing between us was still new. Still ours. Still soft around the edges. And the thought of having to define it for someone else, especially someone like her, felt like too much too soon. So I told her I was busy, and then I sat on the couch, scrolling through nothing on my phone, while Liam made us both tea. "You okay?" he asked, passing me a mug. I nodded, lied. "Yeah." He didn't push, just sat beside me, legs brushing mine, sipping quietly. Eventually I said, "My mom wants to come visit." He raised an eyebrow. "Okay. And that's bad?" I shook my head. "It's just complicated." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "You don't have to tell anyone anything you're not ready to." I looked at him. "You're not mad?" He shrugged. "Nah. Would I like to meet your mom eventually? Sure. But this isn't about me." That answer was so measured, so kind, it made my throat close a little. "I'll get there," I said. "I promise." He reached over and squeezed my hand. "I know." Later that week, I came home late from work. The lights were off, except for the small lamp in the corner, casting everything in a soft amber glow. Liam was on the couch, hoodie pulled over his head, a blanket draped across his lap. I dropped my bag by the door and walked over. He looked up. "Rough day?" "Long," I said, sinking down beside him. He pulled me into his side without a word. We sat there for a while, just breathing, our hearts finding the same rhythm. Then he said, "I told Evan." "About us." I looked up. "Yeah?" "He asked if I was serious about you." I swallowed. "And?" I said, "Yeah, I am." The silence that followed was gentle, full of the unspoken things we didn't need to rush. I turned slightly, pressing my forehead to his. "I'm serious about you too," I whispered. He smiled. "I know." The first time Liam said, "I love you," it wasn't planned. It wasn't during intimacy or some dramatic moment in the rain. It was during breakfast. Tuesday morning. While we were out of milk, he was making toast. I was standing in the kitchen, trying to decide if I could stomach black coffee. I must have made a face, because he looked over and smirked. "You look like someone just told you Santa's not real." "Because coffee without creamer is a war crime," I muttered. He laughed, walked over, set a piece of toast in front of me like it would fix everything. And then, just like he was saying pass the salt, he said, "I love you, by the way." I looked up so fast I nearly knocked over the mug. He didn't flinch, just took a bite of his own toast and shrugged. "Figured you should know." I stared at him. Not because I didn't want to say it back, but because the words were suddenly right there in my throat, warm and heavy and waiting. And then I said it. "I love you too." He gave me this grin, soft, slightly crooked, like he wasn't sure if he should be proud or relieved. Then he reached across the counter, linked our fingers, and said, "Cool, so you're stuck with me now." "Damn," I said. "Guess I'll have to return that ad for a new roommate." We laughed. But the truth was, there was no world where I wanted anyone else. Later that week, I told my mom. I didn't make it a big thing. No dramatic reveal, just a phone call where I said, "Hey, there's someone I want you to meet. His name's Liam." She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "Is he the reason you've been happier lately?" I smiled into the receiver. "Yeah, he is." "Well," she said, "then I'd love to meet him." I hung up and found Liam folding laundry in the living room. He looked up when I walked in. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said. "My mom wants to meet you." He froze, socks in hand. "For real?" I nodded. "Yeah, for real." He grinned. "Guess I better practice my firm handshake." "You're not interviewing for a job, dude." "Still," he said, Gotta impress the woman who made you this soft. That night, we lay in bed, his arm around my chest, our legs tangled like always. You ever think, he murmured, that maybe we were always heading here? To this bed? To this. Us. I thought about it, about college, about the late-night phone calls, about the way I used to look at him when he wasn't paying attention and wonder what if. Yeah, I said. I think I do. Meeting my mom should have been awkward, but Liam, being Liam, somehow made it easy. She came over on a Sunday, bringing banana bread like she always did. And instead of trying to impress her with charm or weird jokes, Liam just showed up as himself. He offered her tea, asked questions about her teaching job, listened when she talked. At one point, while I was grabbing something from the kitchen, I heard her say, "You make him happy. I can tell." Liam didn't respond right away. Then I heard him say, quietly, "He makes me feel like I'm home." I stood there, holding 2 mugs of tea, heart thudding stupidly in my chest. That night, after she'd gone, Liam and I sat on the couch in the soft quiet of the apartment. He leaned his head on my shoulder. I rubbed his knee absent-mindedly. "So," I said, "you gonna start calling her mom now?" "Absolutely not," he said. "But if she keeps bringing banana bread, I might change my mind." We laughed, fell into silence again. Then he turned to me, serious this time. "This is it for me, you know." "What is?" "You. This." He gestured between us. "I'm not looking anymore." I stared at him. "I mean it," he added. "I've never felt more like myself than I do with you, and I don't want to go back to anything else." The honesty in his voice nearly knocked the air out of me. I reached for his hand, held it tight. "You're it for me too." He kissed me then. Slow, certain. No questions left to ask. No what-ifs. Just him, me, home.